everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com. Definitely get over and check out some of the new gear over at Huntworth. The Grayling hoodie, I'm telling you guys, don't sleep on that thing. I'm really excited to be using that one. And they've got some solid colors coming out here very shortly. So solid colors in the Grayling, and then I think the Elkins vest. I think it's the Elkins vest. I'm not sure. But the Bowhunter, like early season vest, that one's coming out in solids too. So look for those over at huntworthgear.com. And if you guys have not been paying attention or been hiding under a rock, you need to get over and check out the new stuff from Latitude. So Latitude dropped their Ranger 22 pack. It sold out in like minutes. The Maverick saddle over there, incredible Lone Star saddle. And I'm not sure if they have any left. They did just drop a limited amount of their new profile platforms, and that has the riser. The design lets it integrate right into the actual platform itself for a slim, easy packing platform. Definitely really cool. Check that out. Latitude.com, latitudeoutdoors.com. And yeah, I mean, this is the time of year where we should be dialing in our gear, and everybody's dropping all of this new stuff. So it's kind of like that love-hate relationship with it. Also, Genesis 3D, check out their sub-1 camera arm for you self-filmers, and his like fluid head for the smaller cameras that integrates right with your phone. Another really awesome thing over at Genesis 3D Printing. Check those guys out. But we got to say thanks to all of our sponsors: Huntworth, Lucky Buck, Latitude, Spartan Forge. Going to be doing a podcast next week here with Bill, talking about that stuff. What's new with Spartan Forge, their LiDAR, the slope shading, all of the new features on there. So definitely go over to Spartan Forge, check them out. Zinger, Canati, Genesis 3D, Big Shot, Vitalized Seed, all those guys. Man, the season is upon us. This podcast talks about just that. So Jacob Emery, he's already been hunting. He's already harvested a deer. So that's wild, for us here in Michigan. But so we talk about like early season tactics and kind of what to do during that, the shift, October lull, all of that sort of time frame. This one I think you guys are going to be able to take a lot away from, because we talk about kind of like some of the harder times to hunt. Talk to Matt Lair, Alex. They say, during the rut, anybody can use these tactics and get on and kill a buck. Not hard. There are some times a year where it's a little bit more difficult, even for the guys that are good, quote unquote, good hunters. So just something to think about. But yeah, this podcast, I think you guys are going to take a lot away from it. Had a good time talking with Jacob. Really appreciate him coming on. Appreciate all of you listening to the podcast. And as always, thank you for listening. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And today we're going to talk a little bit of early season, that sort of thing with Jacob Emery, DO3, I guess it's Data 3 Outdoors. And it's very rare, I think, that we get to talk to somebody this early in the season who's already got meat in the freezer. He's like kicked back, like, oh, yep, I still got it, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But how are you doing today, Jacob?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on. This is one of the bigger ones. I've been fortunate to be asked to come on. It's pretty nice. I still, it's funny. You told me what we were going to talk about as far as like velvet strategies and early season. It's like, I really haven't killed but like one or two good deer in early season. Everybody wants to talk about that. It's like, I've been bow hunting since, what was that, 2003. So it's like, if you take all them years and add it up, all the years I was successful with a good buck, I got a bad batting average. So, but I do love it.
Well, a couple things in there. One, like one of the bigger podcasts, you're making me blush here. We're just a regular dude, just trying to figure it out. World's worst bow hunter, right?
Yep.
So but one of the things that you said there, like you said, okay, well, I've only killed but a couple good bucks, and like I feel like it's nice. It's kind of like refreshing for, because I know that you is one of the like topics that I had like in the back of my mind that I wanted to talk to you about is that, you know, when I asked you to come on here, you're like, well, I can teach anybody to kill a buck like the one I just killed. Like, oh, that's easy. And I think you kind of go back and forth between like really want to kill good bucks, and you do get after really good deer. And then like, I don't know if it's, I guess I don't know where you land on it as far as like, you know, getting caught up in the excitement and just shooting something. Like, I think that there, you know, I think that that's where there's a big miss out there with a lot of the guys that do have podcasts, that have YouTube channels, the guys that are, you know, quote unquote in the industry or like trying to make it, is that they want, it has to be this. And I think that that's kind of what like we're imparting on people, is that it has to be a 140. Like, it's great that those deer are out there and that that you can get on them, but they're, whether you're a great hunter or not, they're really hard to kill. So to go out there and, you know, try to do that when you've never killed one, I think that's the wrong message. I think that's what guys think. It's just like, oh, so easy. So I wanted to ask you like where you landed on that, because you're kind of like all over the map. I feel like you, if I were to sum it up, like you like killing deer. So, you know, you
That's
kill
all
them.
there. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all there is to it. And you know, if you've got the land and the time, the food and all the strategy, the main thing is time, you know, to put into hunting only, you know, big mature deer. That's great. And if you can do it, more props to you. I'm not that great of a big buck killer. I've been pretty lucky. I have strategically killed a few in my day, but like you said, I just like killing deer, man. It's all in fun to me. We do pride ourselves here in this household on we don't buy ground beef. Like, we're not going to do it. You know, I put 4 deer in the freezer last year, and we still had to buy a couple pounds right leading up to that Tennessee hunt. But um, I'm like anybody else, man. I want to kill the biggest deer that I possibly can, but I'm not wasting my life chasing ghosts. Like, that's just the bottom line. And you know, if anybody hasn't seen the hunt that we're referring to, I shot like the world's smallest 8-pointer, and it felt so awesome. Like, there was bigger deer that we had seen on that hunt. That's the deer that gave me an opportunity. The bugs are driving me crazy. I knew it was going to be an easy pack out. Literally, like, I think I threw him on my shoulders and pulled a, I don't even, Cam Haynes, is that his name? I don't know. He's always packing something out for some stupid reason. Like, here's a rock. Let's carry this rock up a mountain. Like, why are you doing that, dude? Anyways, on a tangent there. But yeah, man, it's all in good fun. It's for a laugh, and it's for meat in the freezer. And there's people that are gonna absolutely. I mean, they've already, like, there was a guy, like, one of the first comments on YouTube was, "WTF, dude, let him grow." And I was like, you know, I'm me. I have no filter. I'm like, yeah, he's growing into a hamburger as we speak at the processor. You know, like, I love killing big deer. It's great. But I don't mind shooting the small ones. It's all relative to where I'm at. How much time do I have? Am I with the boys in camp? Am I on a solo mission, you know, somewhere 600 miles from the house? All those things come into account. But like you said, I just love hunting deer.
So a lot to unpack there, and I do want to go and kind of like talk and break down that hunt, because like, for one, we don't get, you know, here in Michigan, like, unless you're going out of state, like, we're still ramping up. Like, I got a couple weeks now, and then it'll be the youth hunt for my daughter, and you know, that'll be fun. It'll be the first time we've done that. It's funny, they changed the rules, and next year it's just going to be a doe only hunt. And I was asking my daughter how she felt about it, and she's like, "Dad, have I ever been on the youth hunt?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "So I just hunt the regular season?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I can still kill one in the regular season?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, well, doesn't matter to me. Who cares?
Right? Yeah, I don't care.
But one of the things that you said there was like the boys in camp, right? So one of the
Right.
things we do here is like our Patreon camp has been really successful, and we've done a couple of them now. And I think that that's something that's really, really missed. So what's your take, you know, because I don't know, did you grow up with deer camps?
No, and I think that's why I love it so much is you know, my granddad, he passed away in 2022, but he kind of instilled the, like, drive to get in the outdoors. He wasn't an avid outdoorsman. He shot the first buck he seen every single fall. Some of the deer that I wouldn't even, Euro Mount was like his best buck. My dad didn't really get into it. But I took a liking to it, and it's always been pretty much my only hobby besides playing football in high school. Shooting sporting clays competitively was something I did for a while, but this has pretty much been, what I do. Uh, I've lost my train of thought. It's been a long day. Where was I going with this? No, the camp. So I never had the deer camp experience. And I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I was still a part of the Hunting Grounds TV. I don't know if anybody out there has heard of them. They're kind of more of land management. Stephen Fuller runs that show. He grows his deer, like private land practices, and that's great. But I started branching out and kind of doing my own thing after that. But we all became or stayed friends, so to speak. And we decided like let's all meet up somewhere early while nobody else's seasons are going on. I'm not interfering with anybody's rut. Let's meet up somewhere and go on a hunt together. And Tennessee was that option. They had that early season. Select public lands were open. Actually, the very first year I went, it was just me and Jacob Myers from the Southern Outdoorsman. Um, and that was the first Tennessee buck that I had killed on that hunt. After that, I've been pretty successful down there. If you're talking about pulling the trigger, I've been pretty successful. I have killed a good buck down there. But that's kind of like the camp hunt every single year, besides maybe like a bunch of guys meeting up to turkey hunt. And, it's the most looked forward to hunt every single year. Like, I love it. Just being there with all those guys that live all across the country. And, it's miserable, it's hot, it's nasty. Jesus, go watch the hunt and just skip forward to the part where I find the deer in the field. Like, there's over 1,000 mosquitoes on him. It's unreal. And I think it's easy hunting deer over soybeans or whatever in early August. Up till this year, you could use a rifle. It ain't an easy hunt, that's for sure. It's tough and it'll wear on you, but just going down there and seeing the guys, that's my goal every year. And I've gotten to where I'll just shoot the first thing I pretty much see down there, almost as a joke, just so I know I'm coming home with something. It's a $2 state, so I'm not leaving empty-handed if I can help it.
And so in that camp dynamic, and I feel like, I've said this with our camps, but it doesn't, at least to me, and I guess you could say, like, if you were going to argue against me, you could say that's what people who don't shoot deer say, right? But I feel like that when you hunt as a group, when you hunt with a camp, like, you're rooting for the camp. Like, we just want to get a deer down in camp so that you get the call that says, hey, my buddy shot one, we're going to go track it. If you're having a bad hunt, if everything goes to shit, it's like you get a text or you get back to camp, but somebody's not back yet. You're still hunting. You're like, your hunt isn't over until everybody's back, And to me, that, what you had said there about like picking a time that doesn't mess up anybody's rut hunt, that's exactly what we're doing too. And it's just so that you can get together and do something that you love. But the hunt, I feel like, is, a lot of times almost secondary to just, getting together and getting to do what you love, like whether you're successful or not,
100%.
So in that like early season, and I don't know why, I think it's just because guys that are, more south than me or that have the opportunity to hunt, we're barely into September here, and you've already like killed a deer, videoed it, and posted it. Like the video's already live. So it seems to me like it seems to me like you've been hunting forever, and I think that's the way that it seems. So when we talk about like early season, like when does your season, as far as like hunting, I know that, everybody's scouting, everybody's running trail cameras, but your season, like when does the switch really flip where you're, loading up your quiver and you're just kind of anxiously waiting? Like at what point of the year is that?
So in my head, because I've grown up in Kentucky, in my head, early season, when I think early season hunting, I'm thinking of, well, now that Tennessee is involved, that last weekend of August to the second weekend in September, around September 15th. That is when you're going to start seeing that first shift happen in Kentucky, where the velvet, testosterone's rose, the velvet has come off, and food sources are normally switching. You're getting those first acorns to drop. I know we talked pre-recording like about how you already finding acorns. It's like I haven't seen the first one on the ground this year. I've walked quite a bit. So all of my scouting, all of my camera setups are essentially they are targeted for that first week. I'm trying to capitalize. I'm trying to run as much intel as I possibly can to capitalize on a buck in velvet. That first, honestly, God, it's not even the first week. It's the first 2 or 3 days, period. From that point on, everything pretty much changes unless you get that great cold front that pushes in right around that September 10th to 15th time frame. You've still got a soybean field that's nice and green and lush. You've got deer that haven't been boogered or pressured. It's like they tend to stay doing their thing in those areas longer. But at some point, things are going to flop. And my deer personally that I've hunted over the years, I rarely see them stay anywhere close to where they're summering. Like they're going to push 500 yards. They might push 5 miles. It just really depends on the topo. It depends on the pressure. Depends on where they're summering. A lot of times I see deer summer in the most ridiculous BS places, dude. Like middle of nowhere. Like you'll have a 1,000-acre crop field and half of it's corn, half of it's soybeans, and it's got an irrigation ditch through the middle of it with a little bit of native grasses growing up in the ditch. That's their home for like 4 months of the year. That is where they stay. They live in the ditch. They live in the natives. They move to the corn once the corn's tall. And then when the beans are tall enough, they can just move out in the beans. They really don't even need water. They get most of their hydration from what they're eating in the mornings from dew. So that last weekend of August to about that second weekend of September is what I consider early season. Then from there, it's like a pre-rut. Then you get right there close to the last part of October, and things start ramping up, and that's kind of where I'm at with it.
So let me just kind of try and put that in context for us up here in Michigan. Like, what do your beans look like down there right now? Because ours are still green. I seen some over this past weekend that were yellowing up a little bit, but they're still.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say 99% of the beans that I saw are still green and tall, and I mean, there's deer in them like crazy.
Well, I actually talked to one of my good buddies, Kyle Ayer, who I've grown up with down here. He's a farmer the other day, and I was asking him about that because you'll see some soybeans that was planted at the same exact time as others, different farmers, different fields. Some are yellowing up quicker. It has to do with rainfall. It has to do with like how low the field is. You know what I mean? In some spots, and variety of soybeans. The deer actually do prefer different soybeans over other ones. Um, but you're getting to the point right now to where they're all getting really close. There's a couple fields that actually the deer are starting to transition to from other soybean fields that are starting to turn yellow already. And this is happening at the worst time for me because I have been dialed in on a couple deer on 3 or 4 different fields all across Kentucky. And I mean, it could be happening at a worse time. That's actually what I did today. I was scattering cameras and just try to get a beat on something for this weekend. But I'd say about 50% of them are starting to yellow up. Once they start, man, I mean, I've seen the deer in them once they yellow a little bit. I don't know what they're doing out there because I've never really seen them eat the yellow leaves. Almost pretty positive they won't. Maybe they're just picking through. There's a couple green leaves here and there, but most of the time within 2 or 3 days of them yellowing up pretty good, they're done with them anyways.
So I think you're one of the few people that I have listened to that talks about like hunting on these soybean field edges. For us, I don't know. Maybe there's more hunters in Michigan. Maybe there's all the soybeans are private. So if there is some that are on public, it's like everybody's lined up there. It just seems like it's just like a no. Like here in Michigan, there's like
Right.
too much, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like, and I've heard you talk about that you can mess that up really easily just from like one guy's worth of pressure. And then as we're talking about the change in the color of the beans and all that stuff and the I guess the desirability of them.
Yep.
When that shift happens, like let's say that you are brand new to this and you're like, okay, I hear all these guys, they talk, and I put myself in this category too. Like I see all these guys talking about beans this year around us. There's beans everywhere. So it's like, oh, we're seeing tons of deer. They're out in these beans and it's cool, but all the beans are on private. And, then next thing you know, all the I mean, I can give you an example for myself. Like I had deer on camera a couple miles away from these beans. I think as soon as the beans came in, my cameras went like completely dead. So I can think that that's where they're at, and I've seen some of the same bucks over there. And now it's like, okay, now where do they go? Do they just go back? How are you playing for that switch that happens, like you said, where you've got that time frame? Because I want to like kind of go through your season, because I think for a normal guy, an average hunter, they, and I'll say it even like during the regular season, if you're just hunting one state or you're hunting like two states, you shoot a deer early, maybe you take your foot off the gas a little bit and you say, okay, now I'm just going to wait for the rut. I'm just going to wait for the good, prime time. I'm not going to, so in a situation where you've seen all these deer, all this stuff, you having done this before, like where do these deer shift, or how do you play that shift? And then do you take your foot off the gas and say, you know what, I know where they're going to be during the rut, so I'm just going to, try and figure it out a little bit in the middle?
So that's where it gets kind of tricky is, once this early season shift happens and they're starting to push off the crops, they're not starting to, they're stopping the whole daylight in the wide open sense of things. I kind of got to regather myself each season. And if you don't live in ag country, you won't understand. But because of the rotational crops, where one field may be, milo this year, it may be soybeans, it may be corn, flip-flops, they may not even plant it. One of my best freaking fields that I've ever hunted on private turned into a tobacco field this year. You've got to just, I have to roll with the punches as the season goes. So once that shift happens, I normally call it the great roundup. I'll go in, gather all my cameras. I may just go ahead and move deep back into the timber, into the topo, whatever it may be, and start looking for sign again. But that's the tough part, is they don't lay down a ton of sign from September 15th, somewhere in there, until about October. That I notice anyways. Now they're starting to nail feed trees, all these white oaks that are dropping, and that also depends on your area. Like this year, I glass in these white oaks and I'm not seeing acorns. So it's going to be tough to find the feed tree, but once you find the damn thing, it's probably where all the damn deer are going to be. But most of the time, I'll let my foot off the gas. Honest to God, I like to let the deer show me, where are we going to be this year? Where are we going to start laying down scrapes and rubs and whatnot? Because it changes so much where I'm at. Locally, I'm talking about within a 100-mile radius of where I am. So I normally just take my foot off the gas. That September 15th to October 10th-ish time frame, I'm trying to just nail a few does, creek crossings, easy trails. If you do got a soybean field that still stays green, you can, you can tackle them deer between where they're coming from and going to that stuff. Standing cornfields are being cut. They will nail them cornfields. Maybe not in the daylight, but like right after dark. But yeah, like you said, I do take my foot off the gas and I wait for the deer to show me where they want to be. I talk about this all the time on podcasts. It's like all these guys talk about these, annual hub scrapes that the deer are always hitting. I've got like a group of scrapes on this WMA that I hunt pretty religiously. And one year that'll be where every deer in the world wants to be. In the next year, for no reason other than the crops rotating, they will not touch it. They won't hit the licking branch or nothing. That camera will be as dead as my great 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 grandma all year long. It's wild. So I kind of revamp, sit back, let the deer show me where they want to be during that time frame. Um, Maybe get lucky, take that time to go out of state, shoot a small deer, you know what I mean, and get back home and like you said, get ready for the better time, so to speak.
So for I guess in that time when you're taking the foot off the gas, that could be I can already see it and hear it in like the passion in which you speak. Like you're probably still hunting harder than a lot of people, even when you're
Oh,
taking the.
for sure, yeah, for sure. But it's not like a strategic, like, okay, I got this deer nailed. I know what he's doing. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try to kill him. It's more along the lines of like, instead of going off of camera intel, I'm going to like hunt my way in, and maybe I'll find something good that I feel good about. Climb up, and if I don't, whatever, it's fine. It's late September. It's early October. It's not a big deal. I'm just out here to have fun. If I get lucky, awesome. If I don't, big surprise. It'd be like every other hunt I've ever been on during that time frame, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And but what I wanted to get at there is like as you're hunting your way in, doing that stuff, you're still in the woods. So for guys that are finding themselves in that situation, like again, like up here in Michigan, who say, "All right, I've been watching these deer all summer, and I thought I had them nailed, and now they're not there anymore," and
Yep.
that can be disheartening, especially if you didn't shoot a small deer in Tennessee. So, so, what are your favorite tactics during that time to quote unquote get lucky or to put yourself in a position to kind of find those deer again? What tactics are you using other than those, just like a creek crossing or whatever? Like, because there has to be, I know that you're not just going into maybe a new area. You're still going to kind of poke around and try and find where those deer are. So where are you focusing? Like if you had deer in a bean field, they're not there anymore, but it's a deer you really want to kill. When you've got your
Right.
foot off the gas, what are you looking at when you're looking at those maps, or what are you looking for when they're not laying down a ton of sign or whatever?
So, especially in Kentucky, this place will get just absolutely hammered. I mean, it'll get the first week of season, we'll have these deer so damn scared, it's not funny. So, looking at a 2,000 foot, aerial view, sit there and think about like, okay, where would I go hide, and what food is closest to that hide to where I don't have to get up and walk very far in daylight, or if at all. Sometimes it's just they're just not gonna, they just won't do it. They're in such thick cover that they don't have to get up and move hardly at all. Like you can't even hunt the places they are, clear cuts or whatever that may be, or swamps. During that time frame, really start digging into the water access sort of thing, um, where the deer have been pushed all the way back into these coves, um, some of these wetland areas, whatever it may be. And if you can find like some secluded, like cattails, cane thickets, things like that, with oaks that are dropping close, that's where the deer normally locally will kind of refuge in that time period. Then of course, once it starts getting into mid-October, you start finding all the scrapes and the rubs and whatnot. They're starting to get a little ballsy. Leave those places, venture out a little bit further. I've tried the whole buck bedding on a north facing military crest slope, blah blah blah, all that stuff. I don't see it. I can't. I'm not. I have so much ADHD. I couldn't walk around the woods and try to focus in on finding all that stuff if I tried. Um, but yeah, the thick cover and close to water in that time frame. It seems like to me the beans turning yellow, the corn drying up. If you don't have acorns fallen yet, some lower wetland areas, coves off of big lakes, whatever it may be, that's holding moisture. Those natives, warm summer grasses are still growing up in those things. That's their green food source before the acorns are falling. And if you if you can combine those two things in an area, acorns, green food source, and cover, that's probably where, and refuge for where like they don't have to worry about being pushed all the damn time. That's where I seem to find these bigger deer moving off after that summer pattern locally. Now it's going to be different in every situation, so it's hard for me to paint a picture for what the deer are doing, up in Michigan. And that's a thing with you guys is like, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan. I'm thinking of all these places where they may have crops. It's like that is nothing other than an inventory thing for you guys. Like, okay, cool. That deer is alive and he's somewhere around here. Is he going to end up where I can hunt? Is he going to end up on the public I'm hunting? Who knows? But he's there. And a lot of times that's really all you need.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you were talking about with the water access, because I'm glad that you brought that up. With you and water access, and I think those things can be translated anywhere, because these deer are just trying to get out of they're trying to get in less traveled areas. Like if you have to get there by boat or whatever, and they have they can use the water as a safety feature, and if there's food there, I mean, you're kind of like stacking all these things that the deer need to stay alive, right? But with your water access, generally, I know every time is going to be different, right? But to me, it seems like most times as you're accessing, as you use water access, I'm using you, but I'm just saying it as an example, as if you're going in water access, you're going to be, the water's always going to be lower than the land at some point, but a lot of times there's going to be hills and other things there that are involved. How far are you going from your boat? Are you trying to get right to the X? And then, because as soon as you have that water there, and especially if there's water with any sort of current, you've got thermals, but then you're going to have the natural drag of the water, and there's all these other things that are going to affect your wind in that situation. And we think, or we've been told, or we've seen with our own eyes, deer want to be on these points looking over the stuff. They want to be on oxbows that are down in the bottom looking out. So like, what is your favorite setup as you are looking at some of these places for water access?
The most ideal thing is to be out of your watercraft and up a tree as quickly as possible. Like you said, if you've got water in general, a large body of water, if there's not much wind, your thermals do want to pull down to that water. If you've got moving water, it wants to flow with that water. And if you've got a wide enough like river or creek, that's like a jet stream. Like that's a runway for air to move down through there. And like you're talking about the oxbows, is the reason the deer love those oxbows is because that wind is running down through there. It hits that landmass and it's just doing this the whole damn time. And it works out really good for them. So finding a deer close to water like that, he's probably thought he's got himself set up for success. And if you are able to get out of that boat and up a tree, like within, I would say, 30 to 40 yards and stay close to that water, it's an ideal setup. Now, sometimes you can't do that. And I preach, because I've argued with guys like back and forth. Like they'll say, if you can't get right up a tree, it's a waste of time. Well, horse crap, because if it saves me 2 or 3 miles of walk and I'm going to do it, I may still get out of the boat and walk 600, 700, 800 yards at some points during the rut and whatnot. Or, it may be even early season if it's a destination I'm trying to get to. But long story short, the closer to your boat, the better, in my opinion. As long as it sets up good for you, do what you have to do. But try to find those setups to where it benefits you more than that buck.
So in that scenario, what is it that you're hunting? And I mean that by like, so depending on the time of year, but regardless, a field edge, you're hunting a food source, right?
Yeah.
In the rut, you may be hunting either downwind of bedding, you may be hunting a hot creek crossing, something like that. That mid season you're hunting an oak flat when they're dropping, right?
Yeah.
But if you're able to get out of your boat and within 30 yards, like what is the feature? Are you trying to get them going back to bed right there just outside of a bedding area, or what's the scenario?
So in a picture perfect scenario, I would feel like I'm hunting these deer on a transition of getting out of their bed and either coming like through a pinch point, because water creates pinch points nonstop. Whether you realize it or not, most of the time, whether it's a land feature, or water between water, where they have to move through that kind of stuff. Um, it's a transition hunt in my head, because I don't feel like I'm good enough to get close enough to shoot one like coming right out of his bed. But everybody knows them deer don't. I mean, it all relative. If you get a good cold front or something, it's different. If it's blazing hot, it's not good. It's almost never going to work out. But them deer are normally going to get up at last 30 minutes of light and just move a little bit, just a little bit. It might be 30 yards, it may be 100 yards. And that's kind of what I'm trying to tackle, is that buffer zone between there in the afternoons. Now, the morning times, I feel like that time period is better for hunting. And you'll have guys like Bill Winke and all these guys preaching like, don't hunt mornings, don't hunt mornings. Them deer are out feeding all night long. And if you catch one that just waits a little bit long to come back, to where you think he's bedding, if you're, set up right on that water, or whatever it may be, you've got a way better shot. I think you've got a way better shot at targeting a buck in a scenario like that in the mornings versus the afternoons, in my opinion, because he may move off 600, 700, 800 yards from his bed that night and work his way back to it in the morning, but he's only going to move, X amount of yards, not very much at all, right there at dark. So, but that's what I'm targeting. I'm targeting a transition from them bedding to where I think they're feeding on.
And so one thing that you brought up there, or at least my mind goes to, and I've heard you talk about it before, is we had Adam Hayes on here a couple months ago, and obviously he's selling the Red Moon guide, right? So he has a vested interest. But I've heard you talk pretty passionately about that Red Moon. So what's been your experience like figuring that the movement out on the moon?
That's really touchy, because I swear by it some days, and then it'll be like right in between red moons where the overhead underfoot is like at 1:30 in the afternoon, and at 6:30 that night he's out feeding like in broad daylight. It's like, what made him get up that day? I don't know. I feel like that red moon has more of an effect once the velvet's gone and before the rut. So like that time period of like September 15th to October 25th, like that's where deer movement, where you're visually seeing them, that's where that stuff kind of matters. It's kind of a weird time. They don't have more of a drive to do anything other than get up and feed. So whatever that driving force is to get them up, obviously, if you get the red moon, which is like what, a 4 or 5 day period where the overhead underfoot tends to line up with what we consider hunting times. Pair that with a little bit of weather, and you get a little bit of magic every now and then. Now, the two deer that we're talking about this time period, I've killed some deer in that time period that I'm pretty proud of, and I've went as far back on that calendar as I could to see those days, and it just happened. I didn't know anything about that years ago when it happened, but that's when it happened. Was during that red moon time on a cold front in late September or early October. It's wild. I'm gonna hunt no matter what, is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? If I've got time, to get away from the kids and the wife, and everything's good at home, don't have to work. I'm not just hunting those red moon days. And during the rut, I don't care what anybody says. You can toss all that BS out the window. It just takes one hot doe to change your entire season like that. And that moon ain't got in my opinion, it ain't got nothing to do with super early season and during the rut.
That's an interesting take on it. And I think, that may change some people's opinion, not necessarily of the red moon, but just the way that they look at that time period, right? Because for us, I guess bow hunters in general, but Michigan, I think is, I don't know. It's like the bastard of all the Midwest. Like, we're not really the Midwest. Nobody wants to hunt here. It's just one of those things. But there's that October lull period, right? Which is exactly the time that you're talking about. And, I've killed deer during that time. I've got a buddy that absolutely swears by, like, these 3 days in October is when he's killed all of his biggest deer in Michigan. And it's a date when no one would ever want to hunt. Like, it's like you're going to hunt when? Like, why? That, like, you have to be in the woods on that day? Like, no. But it's interesting because you're right. That's kind of like the period of time where they're just maybe just trying to, like, survive, just trying to feed. And because it's a quote unquote crappy time to hunt, maybe there's not as much pressure. So they get to be more like deer and just kind of do their thing. So
Right.
it's interesting. And, it's hard when somebody's, trying to profit off of it. So you always have to look at it like, oh, I don't know if it really does work. But at the same time, I say, like, I remember, like, way back in the day with the old, like, Nokia phones and, like, my old GPS, like, it had, like, good times to fish based on the moon, right?
Right.
And that's kind of like what he
There's
says, right?
definitely something to it. There has to be. I mean, it's been scientifically proven, that the phase of the moon has nothing to do with it, but the overhead and underfoot, it does have something to do with it. I'll never understand it, and people argue back and forth. I'm not going to sit here and preach it to nobody. It don't make no difference to me whether you believe in it or not. It's just something I like to look at, and when it lines up, like it lines up perfectly. The first day of a red moon is literally on Kentucky opener, and the temperature is a high of 73. I cannot remember the last time the high was 73 for a Kentucky opener. Like, my freaking titties are hard right now just thinking about it. I'm so excited.
So in that scenario, right? What?
Yep.
We literally just came off, like, probably one of my most fun discussions, the podcast that I just did with Alex, talking about going in blind, right? And reading the sign and all of that. So for you, a guy who runs a lot of cameras, does a ton of glassing, is really focused on, like, figuring out these deer. You have a situation where, like, everything is starting to, like, line up perfectly, right? How do you choose where you're going to hunt and what factors impact that? Because you've got the moon, you've got the weather. So everything is, like, the best possible scenario. How do you choose? Like, what factor are putting in, like, which stand location? Because we all, everybody who wakes up and says, I'm going to hunt tomorrow, like, you have it in the back of your mind, like, oh, I'm going to go hunt here, or I'm going to go hunt there because of on this date, or I've seen this, or my camera said that. So perfect scenario, opening day, for if you hadn't already been hunting, it's Christmas morning. What are you doing, and what makes that decision?
It's always the most recent information. It's paired with the low hanging fruit. And I preach this because I'm not a picky guy. Like, I will shoot, like, I'm just going to be honest. I've got 170-inch deer that I've seen on and off all summer long. I've also got 135-inch 8-point that is religiously in the same spot every day, no matter the wind. So as long as he does that all the way up till Friday, that's the deer I'm going to go hunt. I want to tag that buck early, where get the wife off my back for a few weeks until Indiana opens. Get some more meat in the freezer, I've got a buck tag field. I'm feeling good about myself. Keep the ball rolling. Would it be great to kill that way bigger deer? Sure. And I'm not saying that I'll kill the deer I was talking about, because things change. That deer may stop doing what he's doing, and the other one get on a good pattern. And that crap goes not only just for early season, but like, you know, let's just say like a late October time frame. Like, I got this freaking scrape that's being just absolutely hammered, 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 hammered. It goes cold for a day, and then one of my big deer hits a different scrape. Like, I'm not going to that scrape. I want to go to the most recent, like, I want to go to the most recent sign that he's, jumping on. That's just me. It's it's funny because I think I talked with Matt about this. It's like, I do all this scouting and watch these deer, to where if I'm put in a position to where, there is no information 3 or 4 days before the hunt, I can fall back on what was the most consistent place and time that I feel like I'm going to put myself in success's way. But yeah, it's always a game time decision, and just kind of let the deer tell me where to go.
One of the things I've been, I don't know, kind of harping on lately, and I'm going to pose it to you a little bit differently, is how do you hunt differently out of state than you do in your home state or on your home turf?
So a lot of that depends on the time I go. If, like, Tennessee, I'm going early, I'm not interested in holding out for a giant deer. I'll kill the first opportunity I get. Out of state, I'm going to be way more aggressive in walking, finding information, finding sign, putting all these things together where I capitalize in 2 or 3 days. I'm not going to be as picky, and I'm going to be super aggressive and push and push and push on those hunts versus back here at home in Kentucky and Indiana, where I've got time. I'm only, 45 minutes to an hour from where I need to be from here versus, I'm 4 or 5 hours out of state, and I've only got this small time frame to get it done. I may not even get to come back. So out of state is a ton of e-scouting. It's a ton of, like what Alex said, I love going in blind. I do like watching these deer and learning my deer close to home, but there's just something, I don't even know the word, almost romantic about going in blindly and hunting that fresh sign and shooting a deer that you've never seen before.
So do you think that at some point, and I mean, I feel like I'm guilty of it, and I have a lot of guys that get, you're looking at that most recent information, right? But I feel like we've all been burned, like, I don't know. I just think of the ones that really, really sting, right? When you're chasing that, like, most recent information, but it's a picture from yesterday or 2 days ago, and you're like, oh, I got the next time to hunt. We got the same conditions. I got to be in there. But that deer wasn't there. And, like,
it almost never works out.
I know. In my case, it's like, I know.
I don't know why I preach it, because it almost never works out. It's just like, I'm just going into it like that's what's going to give me the most confidence.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I think about the differences between, like, when you're out of state, like, you're like, I need to be like, what's going on now? Like, I need to see it. Like, as soon as I see it, like, with my own eyes, then boom, I can adjust and make a difference. But, like, you're sitting at home, you wake up and you're like, okay, here's the camera pictures, like, here's the wind, like, what's going to get the best spot? And, like, in your heart, like, you know where you should go, but, like, that big buck showed up over here. Like you said, they were killing that scrape, and then they weren't. And then you got a picture. And so you go over there because one of your big bucks is over there. And then that scrape lights up, and you knew you should have been there because, it just rained or something like that. And you're like, oh, I know they're going to be back in there. Like, I just feel like when we're out of state, we're always, like, chasing like, what we see with our eyes, and not what we're even with these cell cams, we're always chasing historical data, right?
Yeah.
It's just more.
Let me be clear. Like, if I get a cell cam picture or check a card or whatnot of a deer, like, I'm not running to that spot. I'm trying to think, like, where and why is this deer going the direction I think he's going, and what is he going to? And I'm almost trying to hunt him more on the rebound. Like if I get a picture of him coming off, this slope at 8 o'clock at night, okay, cool. Well, I'm not going to hunt right there in the morning. I'm trying to think like, okay, where did he come from? Like, is his bed 150 yards up this way somewhere? Like, I'm going to go in that next morning and try to cut him off coming into that based on wind direction or yada, yada, yada. If you're chasing deer where your cameras are, you are wasting your time 9 times out of 10. And as far as the cell cameras go, I know there's a bunch of funk around them. I like them because they give me time with my kids. They save me, fuel and stuff like that. And it's convenient. And I think some things should be convenient for us humans. For the love of God, they can smell 500,000 times better than us. And I was out today. The wind was blowing every damn direction when I was like trying to like wind check a spot with some milkweed on like where I thought the kill tree was. And I'm like, can't kill him here. Like it's supposed to be a north wind. It's blowing out of the south, west, east, north, in the last 10 seconds. But yeah, man, you can't hunt them pictures. That's for sure. It'd be great if you could just teleport out there, but you can't do that.
Well, and I'm glad that you said that because, like, I think that that's where people, and obviously I found myself doing it too. But it's like, well, he was there at daylight, like, it's been consistent, like, but like now, like I sent you a picture of a deer that, I told you stop hunting my deer because we have a similar deer on camera in that spot, like. I already knew what the deer were doing. I went in there to see what was going on, and I found a runway that I hadn't found before that was like super tore up. So I put a camera there, and now I've got all these deer on there, and it's like, in your mind, you're like, oh, if I was just where that camera was, but I can't get to that camera without crossing everywhere that the deer went through. So now I got to go back to like, I already know where I can kill these deer. I've already killed them in there, but in our minds, we're like, oh, that's what's going on. And you have to really, really figure out where they're coming from, what time they were there, where they're going, all of those things. And I'm really glad that you said, that you clarified that, because I think for a lot of the listeners, right,
Mm-hmm.
we're like, okay, I mean, it's a Michigan thing, I think, and I don't know what it's like in Kentucky, Southern Indiana, whatever, as far as like baiting. But like back when I was a kid, like you put out a bait pile, you hunted on your bait pile, and that's where you had your camera, so you knew like exactly what was going on. And now in the world that we live in, like the way that we hunt, the way that we understand, at least myself, understand these deer a little bit better, like that's just not the case. It's not going to work.
Nope. I grew up in Kentucky hunting over corn piles, and I just could never figure out why I'm not killing all these big deer. Everybody else on TV is doing it. Why aren't they walking in here to my corn pile?
So what does the rest of your season look like? We get amped up for the early season. You've got your opener coming up, and then that lull place. Where else are you hunting? What else you got on the docket?
So Kentucky is opening up on Saturday, and I've got pretty, like, I'd be lying. Like, I'm trying not to get in my head because I just feel so good about this coming up weekend as far as the temperatures, moon, and all that stuff. I felt like I was on pins and needles out today in the 3 different spots that I went, putting out a few more cameras. I was like, they're watching me right now. Like, and I checked the pictures, and it's like I don't have any pictures, but I watched the deer last night, so they knew I was in there, so they didn't come out. So now, like, I'm in my head, anxiety is flowing. But I'm going to try to capitalize this weekend on the lowest hanging fruit that I can find on a deer. Like people watch me shoot that little deer, and they're like, he just shoots little deer. It's like, well, I do like shooting, whatever is available in times like that. But I hold out for better deer back home, and I know that this season's super fruitful as far as all the velvet deer I have on camera. Like it's going to be a good rut. I just know it. So I'm not going to shoot just something to make me super happy here, or I'm not going to shoot something in Kentucky just to get by that first weekend because I've got a long season ahead of me. Of course, I'll probably go ahead and pick up my Indiana license. That comes in on October 1st. I normally don't fool with them deer until the rut. And the whole goal each year is to tag a buck in Kentucky first, then hunt Indiana. But other than that, I may go to Ohio for the first time this season. and try like a 3 or 4 day rut hunt up there. But besides that, I've got a Unit 5 late season muzzleloader tag in Iowa. So I'm pretty excited about that. If I can get some good weather, that'll be a really interesting hunt. I know it's the land of the giants, and Unit 5 is kind of like what everybody wants, or I think it is. Tons of public out there, hoping to find some standing crops and a lot of snow. But that's pretty much my season. Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, possibly Ohio, and for sure Iowa after Christmas.
And so in following along with you, watching some of your stuff, we're a bow hunting podcast, but it doesn't really seem like you discriminate. You just like killing deer with whatever weapons in season.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna hunt with whatever is available at that time. Um, like this year, Tennessee went back to just a bow only. I didn't whine, I didn't cry because we could use a high powered rifle on deer in early season up to this point. And if it was easy, everybody would be down there doing it. I mean, it was still pretty tough. I was pretty fortunate, but I felt like the reason I was successful over some of the other guys is because I've grown up in this agricultural setting and I know how the deer operate in this stuff. But I'm an opportunist. So if it's muzzleloader season, I'm packing the muzzy. If it's rifle season and I can hunt with a rifle on that public, I'm going to be packing 30-06. And the minute it's over, I'll be back to a Matthews in my hand. It does not make no damn difference to me.
And so you're talking. I heard you talk about this, and I just kind of want to touch on it a little bit. You said that it was on one of the other podcasts that you tried to bring your kids out hunting, and it was kind of a debacle, right?
Oh,
so how are you bringing your kids up around the hunting, and what are their ages and stuff when you're trying to do this?
My YouTube is DO3 Outdoors, Data 3, like you said. I've got my oldest is my daughter Keely. She's 10 now. I've got my stepson. His dad's kind of not involved at all, so I've raised him since he was 11 months old. Kyson, he's 6. And then our youngest, Lakin, he turned 4 just a few days ago. Keely kind of had her thing, when me and her mom split, we were always together, spent every waking moment together. She used to love going with me, kind of burn her out on it, I think. I didn't really push it on her. I didn't, beg her to hunt. She killed her first turkey when she was 8. She hasn't shot a deer. She's been with me when I've shot a deer. It's a hilarious reaction on YouTube. I shoot a doe with a muzzleloader and the thing just makes this noise. I hit her high and her face was like, oh my God, she's never going to go with me again. She's like, I'm like, yes, we can. God, I thought you were going to start crying, but she's kind of burned out on it. She doesn't want to go. I think she just don't like getting up early. My stepson's eat up with it. He goes with me to glass every time I get out. And the youngest is a pain in the ass, and I do not allow him in any high opportunity situations at all. So once he chills out a little bit, he'll get to go. I learned my lesson the hard way with that one.
Yeah. I just wondered because my daughter, she's about to turn 9, and she killed the first deer last year. We went out turkey hunting a few times this year, and
nice.
She's cool, but like at the same time, like I take her on hunts that are just for the kids. So like she dictates everything. Like,
Yep.
it could be the biggest buck in the world, and it's like, are you going to shoot him? What are we going to do here? It's 100% her hunt. So I was just wondering like how that went, because I could tell when you were talking about it, you're like they were coming with me to hunt, and everyone that I've ever talked to about that, unless they're a little bit older, like they really understand, or it's like from a shack from a long ways away, it always kind of seems like that. So I tried to make it just like it's your hunt, like whatever.
Yep. Well, Kyson he's not really able yet to, I would say, man a rifle. He can take care of my little 20 gauge on like a bog death grip and shoot a turkey. Like we almost killed a few this year, but I don't know. It's just kind of filling them out. I'm not going to push it on them. They can hunt with whatever they want to hunt with. until they turn about 13. And if I catch them using a crossbow, I'm gonna jump their tail. It's like, you are perfectly able. You are not gonna do. I'm just teasing. But no, I don't know, man. We'll see how it goes. That boy in there in that room beside me is eat up with it, and I'm sure I need to go ahead and just purchase like a 223 or something of that nature. Get him a lower recoil rifle and get him set up.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys got down there and what the distances are and stuff, but my daughter's shooting and all my nieces are, a 350 Legend, and
Yeah,
it's 100 150 yards. Like, it's a decent rifle. There's like no recoil, and it gets them on an AR platform, so they're proficient. So it's I don't think it's like the perfect rifle, but it's and for us here in Michigan, we've got like the straight walled thing, so you can hunt anywhere in the state with it instead of just being shotgun zone versus the.
gotcha.
So
Yep. I don't know. I don't know why in the world, where I'm at, people want a rifle that shoot 300 yards. Like almost every damn deer on this wall I've killed with a muzzleloader rifle. I could probably just about got him with the bow. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't shooting over 100 yards with a gun 9 times out of 10. I can't hit a deer at 300 yards with a rifle. There's no way. I'm gonna miss him by 3 feet.
the funniest part about that is the aside from shooting an elk like at like 300 some yards, the furthest away I've ever killed a deer was with an open sight Winchester Model 94. Like, it was like 94 yards, and
Nice.
I shoot a 7 mag with a 3 to 9 scope, and I'm shooting them at 20 yards. And
Oh yeah.
so
Oh yeah.
I feel you on that one. But so kind of back to the like early season transitioning type stuff. Like, as we kind of close this out, what do you think is like the most important things for guys to know in that time frame? If you were getting your buddies who'd only ever hunted 1-2 times, they want to get into it, and they're like, all right, these are the days that I like, they didn't know any better, and they're like, all right, I took my vacation for hunting, like nobody had it off, I'm hunting October 6th to the 14th. What would you tell them?
You tell them I just cashed my vacation days in. Is what I'd do. Um, that's a really tough time. Uh, I would tell them I would do a ton of walking, and that's tough because if they're just now getting into it, I mean, they don't know what to look for. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just in that time frame, you're going to have to hopefully come up with a little bit of like rub sign, work your way back to the thickest, gnarliest stuff you can find, and hope there's some sort of food that they're hitting within 100 yards of that, and play the wind and hunt it every single day you can, and just hope it happens. And most of the time, it ain't gonna work in that time frame. I wouldn't. I wouldn't bank on killing a deer in that time frame. And I've been doing this a long ass time. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that was a tough question. You hit me with a tough one there. I thought you were gonna say like November 1st or something. I was like, come on, Adam, help
No,
me.
no. I brought you on here for the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but that's the thing, is like a lot of these guys, they don't know what they're looking for, and they wouldn't maybe know that that's a bad time of year. That's just the time that they get to hunt.
Yeah.
And
20 times better than nothing. You know what I mean? Just get out there and learn it, man.
yeah, and I think that's great advice. I think maybe the only thing that I would add on, and I think you probably in your head would do the same thing, is if you see something and you're not on the X, adjust. Like, because
Yeah.
I think if you're in there in that stuff, and that's one of the things I think Byron does really well, is he walks everything back to like the thickest stuff. He figures out why, but I don't think he does it during that time frame. But
That's a tough time frame if you ain't hunting like Iowa farm country, Like you may find a deer hitting a damn cut cornfield right at dark, close to some thick cover, but it just don't work like that around not where I'm at. It can be done, I'm sure. But a buck of a good caliber in that time frame is going to move very, very very little in the daylight. So you you might as well smell the damn thing, before you stop walking, because that's about how close you got to be.
Well, man, I really appreciate it. Where can people follow along with you? Where can they watch the hunt that we're talking about? And where are you most active if they had any questions or were more interested in getting a hold of you?
I would say Instagram. I'm probably the most active. Let me see. I've got two of them. One's like DO3 outdoors. It may be D03. I'm not sure how I've spelt it. Then there's like DO3 media. I'm trying to start up like a photography ordeal where I do like weddings and stuff like that, make some side cash. Whatever it may be. But there, or of course, you guys can find my stuff on YouTube. Like me and Adam have iterated here. Like I'm not too good to shoot, average deer. And that's kind of what I want to, present to people is it's okay to just do what you want to do, because at the end of the day, somebody else's opinion of you or what you shoot don't mean shit, because, most of the time those guys are set up. Their daddy has got, farmland, or they've kissed enough butt to where, the hair stuck to their lips, and they got sweetheart deals and outfitters, and this, like, just do your thing and shoot what makes you happy. And I know that's kind of beat to death nowadays, but I do what makes me happy. I shoot what makes me happy. I hunt however the heck I want. Um, but there's a great mix of, some really nice deer that I've been fortunate to kill on there, along with, average Joe hunts. I'm just a guy with 3 kids, work my tail off. I try to balance family time and all the work around the house and at work, still while running all this stuff. And it's tough. And that's why I'm not as picky as most people. So, but that's where I'm at. YouTube, Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. If you're going to ask me for the, best places or this, that, I mean, I'm probably going to throw you for a loop. So don't bother. Ask me if you want to ask me what to look for. Great. First thing I'm going to do is check and see where you live at. If you live anywhere within 100 miles of me, I'm going to lie to you so badly it ain't funny.
But all that is exactly why I wanted to bring you on here, because I think that, you're a great hunter, but you're also a great example of, being a guy that likes to deer hunt, that doesn't do it for himself as much as, a lot of guys out there who only want to show you the good stuff, or only want to show you, they can't laugh at themselves. They can't, it's just hunting. They're just deer, and it's supposed to be fun, right?
Exactly. Whenever you get, I one of the guys I was talking to actually today, I'm not going to mention his name, but like he's so obsessed with killing these giants and only giants, to the point where like he stresses about it and it eats him alive. It's like, dude, it's not even a hobby anymore. It's a job. Like, I'm not even stressed about my damn job. I was looking for a job when I found the one I got. If I lost it tomorrow, I'd be fine. I'll find another one. It's like, just go hunt, man. It's like, you don't, win a trophy for shooting the world's biggest deer. No, just, I don't know how to put it. You know what I mean? If you're that stressed about it, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Preach, brother.
I mean, I'm like everybody else. I want to kill a big deer, and sometimes I feel like I'm in a good enough situation where I get it done. And other times, a lot of times it's luck. There's a lot of luck on my wall. Trust me, a lot of it. But I'll take it.
Awesome. Well, I wish you nothing but success this year, and I can't wait to see, come Monday morning, the pictures of that 135.
I'll have that hunt. If I kill him on Saturday, I'll have that hunt uploaded by Sunday morning. You wait and see.
Perfect. We'll be looking forward to it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, sir.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter, or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
Shoot straight and come hungry, my friends. This is Duck Camp Dinners.
Oh, he mad.
Big things planned with some alligator, some ducks. It's gonna be good, and I'm looking forward to cooking. Don't miss a new episode of Duck Camp Dinners. It's coming at you every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on Waypoint TV.